All right, one more thing. I'm wearing the same clothes because it's the same night I'm doing the video. The NBA's top 75 players of all time came out to celebrate 75 years of the NBA. I don't know. I guess it's like media. I don't know what criteria they were given to like consider while making these lists. It seems like everyone kind of interprets it their own way. And even listen, I gotta be honest, there's a couple that like I don't understand, no matter how you look at it, how some of these guys got in. Number one, Anthony Davis, feels a little like some recency bias. Now, I get that, assuming he has another 10 years in the league, he probably will be considered a top 75 player. We can't assume that, though, because, he gets hit by a train, he busts his freaking leg open, he, tears his ACL 3 times consecutively. I don't know, like, a lot could happen, and that kind of freezes his career numbers, so to speak. I hate how I have this, ignore that. So, yeah, Anthony Davis, he's made some all-star teams. He obviously has a ring. Bubble ring. Does that matter? I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but he's a little questionable to me at the moment. Secondly, Damian Lillard is a weird one because if you're going on championships, he does not have any. Now, obviously, one of the best scorers of the NBA at the moment. One of the best shooters maybe of all time in terms of range. If you respect loyalty, he's definitely kind of the poster child for that, especially in an era where players are moving around all the time. But for me, those were the two. Now, I'm not I can't pretend to be some kind of basketball historian. I'm not going to go off about how Pete Maravich's numbers are pale in comparison to, Alex English's or something like that. But I do think, in terms of the more recent guys, those two stick out, especially because a still recent guy in Dwight Howard left off the list. And I understand, there's a lot of perception here, obviously, because a lot of people don't like Kyrie Irving. And I feel like that, just as a human being, it's hard to put those kind of biases aside. Bias. Put those things aside when doing something like this. And I think Kyrie and Dame, maybe numbers-wise, relatively comparable. Teammate-wise, Kyrie's had better teammates. He's also been a worse teammate than Damian Lillard. And Dame has albums out. Albums? I don't know if that matters. I have no idea. It just seems like Dame's a little more palatable to the general public when it comes to, voting and whatnot. Especially if Dwight Howard's your other guy, not someone who's been at the top of the league for a while, obviously, but I think we forget how dominant he was in the late 2000s, early 2010s. The dude was, multiple defensive player of the year, sending shit into the fifth row on a nightly basis. Led a Magic team whose second best player was probably Hedo Turkoglu. I don't know, Jameer Nelson, Rashard Lewis, Michael Petrus. Who knows who the second best player on that team was? And obviously the East was weak at that point, but in any era, if you are the number one with that kind of supporting cast, I think it means a lot that you made it to the finals and got out of the conference. So Dwight Howard, yeah, I've never really liked him, even when he was at his best. I can't say I was one of his biggest supporters, but I think when you look at the resume, it's a little bit of a head scratcher to think. And he has the ring too. Obviously he wasn't a main piece of the championship, but still counts, I guess. Are all rings considered equal? I think that's a big question in terms of, if you look at the roster, how much does the player contribute at the time? Does Dwight Howard's ring count the same as, say, Dirk Nowitzki's if you're just comparing the two? Because obviously both, were number ones on teams, but not at the time that they won the ring. So there's obviously a lot to consider in that regard. And if Damian Lillard, wins a ring later in his career as like a backup point guard, like, what does that mean? I have no idea. I'll make an argument here. Nikola Jokic, another recent current player, just won an MVP. And I gotta say, I think, obviously his career is still young, but if you win an MVP in the NBA, regardless of when in your career or whatever, I think that counts as like you should probably be considered top 75 all time. Now I get like in most cases, obviously Jokic will probably make the top 100 team. Maybe he won't. He gets disrespected. I've already made a video about that. Feel free to check that out. But obviously, Derrick Rose, I feel like is an example of someone you can't, like in the AD situation, like Derrick Rose, if this happened in 2009 when he won his MVP, everyone would have him on their list. And obviously he's become a productive player and obviously not the same guy that he was his MVP year. And even if you look at the numbers, like that MVP season, just a little LeBron voter fatigue perhaps. But it's kind of weird when we're ranking and making lists and who's on and who's not. Like Klay Thompson was very vocal about, not making the list. And it's like, bro, I don't know, man. I think he's kind of a victim in terms of like, where do you fall in your team? He's never been the alpha number one. But then again, like Dennis Rodman was never an alpha number one, but he's on the list. So how do you differentiate? Obviously Dennis Rodman was a part of, the historic Chicago Bulls or whatever, but Klay Thompson part of the historic Golden State Warriors. So it's really hard when you start parsing it out. In terms of how we view these guys. I look forward to seeing kind of if they release voting across the board where, guys on the fringe. And even after saying all this, like Carmelo Anthony, no ring. He's like, he's up there in terms of total career points, but never a guy that the media loved or, was beloved by fans. Obviously, everyone like felt sorry for him for a little bit there for some reason. And then he came back and was like, oh my God, it's great. Melo's back, even though we just basically like shit on him because he doesn't pass the ball. So that's a weird one. But again, he makes it. And I've always been a Melo fan, so I got no complaints about that. And the weird thing is really, like none of this matters. There's no one's getting more money because they made this list. And the way they revealed it too is really weird. They did 20 like sections of 25. No, like 1 through 75 rankings. It wasn't chronological. It wasn't alphabetical. Like I don't know what the organization was in terms of when and why they released these certain names. Because I feel like a ranking now that would get people talking in terms of, oh, you had such and such over such and such, and Fat Lever wasn't there, and just thought I'd have a Fat Lever reference in there, just as one of the best names in the history of basketball. Make a top 75 best names in basketball list. Nicknames or real names. It doesn't matter to me. But that, and I think I share a lot of the common opinions just out there. But I think Dwight Howard was a major snub, and I think some of these voters got to look at themselves a little bit and realize, Dwight Howard was sick late 2000s. That's all I got to say on the matter. Take care of yourselves. Take it easy. And I'll see you next time.